Welcome to the Hustle or Bust podcast powered by Paverart. Our mission is simple: to dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, small business, and all the success, struggle, and challenges that need to be confronted in the pursuit of growth. We celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit, but perhaps most important, we want you to learn at least one idea that you can put into action immediately to make your investment in time worthwhile. In today's episode, we cover a range of offensive tactics a business can put into play during an economic downturn, comparing today versus what Paverart dealt with during the Great Recession of 2008. Check that. These tactics can be implemented during any economic climate. We hope you find an idea or two to put into action in your business. First of all, the assumption is that right now, based on the stock market, inflation, supply chain issues, and probably 6 other reasons why one could think or believe that a recession is right around the corner. You know, is this realistic? Are we looking in the right direction, or does it matter? If you even if you just think that an economic downturn is coming, should you start preparing for that, even if you're just thinking about it?
Well, I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think, it's paper wealth here that we're dealing with. So I think one question I'm always fascinated with.
What was that again? It's
paper wealth.
Okay.
So the stock market, I think the stock market, if you look at the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, it's down 15 to 30%, depending on what you're looking at. So let's just say you have a 401k balance and you open that up today. It's a lot of wealth destruction there.
True.
15%, 20%. I guess that's the first question. When people look at their 401k balances or their stock investments and they see it down, let's just pick a number, 25%. Does that change their behavior? I guess is one question. What do you think?
I think it changes their behavior significantly. There's the average person, if they're not looking at their retirement income, if they're not looking at what their retirement investments are doing on a regular basis, it's human behavior. It's just natural human behavior. I know I do.
I think that the prevailing wisdom is the stock market's a leading indicator. So
Right.
Stock market goes up, that's usually a sign that the economy is in good shape. When the stock market starts to go down, it's a leading indicator of bad economic things to come. Now, what are those bad things? It could be less overall economic activity. Eventually, layoffs will start happening. I think, what is unemployment? 3.5%?
It's threes, upper threes.
So it's, generally unemployment's never been this low. So that's good. But when businesses start tightening their belt, right, and they start looking at everything tight and preparing for either a recession, whatever you want to call it, jobs will be lost and unemployment will start going up. We'll go to 4%, 4.5%, who the heck knows? I guess the question, why don't we talk a little bit about, we're a small business.
Right.
We're small, specialized manufacturing, less than 10 employees, and been around 20 years. Why don't we talk about maybe that we can help people? How would we think about planning for an economic downturn? And maybe there's things that people can learn from that. Maybe we go back to, you were here in the great financial crisis, 2008?
Yep.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your experience, what happened at Paverart? We were in business, 4 years going into that?
Up to that point, it was 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. 08 came around. And my brother and I, my brother Ken and I, we talked about this quite often. We seem to be able to predict when there's going to be back then we were able to predict it. We saw it before it actually occurred.
How did you see it?
Well, first of all, the actual first concrete signs, as I recall, was the Washington Mutual issue in the summer of 2000. I think it was 2008, where all of a sudden.
Oh, the collapse.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it didn't hit nationally and then internationally until September, October, November, so late 2008. But we started seeing signs of this in Q1 of 2008. And what was really, really unusual, what
did Paverart's business look like?
Our business, the busiest part, our busy season usually starts late February, early to mid-March at the latest. And that was a trend pretty much every year, a very positive trend every year. And the first thing that you start getting calls on is residential inquiries. You get residential inquiries in January, February, and March. Zero.
It dried up.
Yeah, absolutely zero. And
that was the first year in the Paverart's 5 years that you saw it dry up like that.
It was significant enough where you're, okay, since it's a large quantity, you get more, obviously you're going to get more inquiries from a residential standpoint because they're smaller jobs and there's a lot more of them out there than municipal, institutional, or commercial jobs. So you're going to get a lot, the volume of phone calls that you get is pretty significant. We see that every week here now.
So as a manager of the
back
business,
then, those phone calls, you're calling Verizon to see if, is there something wrong with the phones? There wasn't anything wrong with the phones. So that was the first precursor that there was an indicating that this is not good. What's going on? At first, you think it's the business. Are we doing something wrong? We had not changed. That was, as it turned out to be, the precursor to what really became the big drop in the summer of 2008 and then the fall of 2008.
So Paverart, a small little business, obviously wasn't immune to a big economic downturn.
Right, exactly.
And okay, so you were fifth year in business. You see your residential business dry up, which was a segment of ours.
Right.
What do you and your brother, what do you start talking about on how to manage?
Well, fortunately, in this business, we have a broad base of markets. You've got residential, you've got commercial, institutional, which includes schools, and you've got municipal. Those are the four key ones. And of course, you've got the design community that lords over all of that, and basically, pinpoints you as the spec into a job for a municipal opportunity or a commercial opportunity or a school opportunity. So they never went away. The landscape architects and architects of the world never went away. They were always on our side. But if you're losing one of those four, it just makes sense that you've got to emphasize whatever you're doing to solicit business. You've got to emphasize or put more of an emphasis on the other three, and that's what we did. And that kind of manifested itself in our paper ads, which at the time was really the only thing that we had to kind of get the word out. But we started showing more municipal work. I mean, municipal type. We would show examples in our paper ads of the municipal work that we did. We took that approach. Did the same thing from the commercial and the institutional and school end. Then we also got more aggressive on follow-ups of previously quoted jobs to find out if there was going to be any, if there's any opportunities there, and we want to make sure we're not missing something. Those were the two key things that we went after, and that plus, and you got to, I'm just being honest here, we got a little lucky too. The inquiries for municipal projects alone are what predominantly sustained us for the first 2 years of what's been called the Great Recession.
So if Paverart was a one market company, residential only,
well, we're done.
You're done. You don't have enough time to
exactly
to flex. I mean, so that's a key learning. Is there's a lot of in our world of hardscaping, we're dealing with contractors, and at least my experience, you have more experience in this, but they're either one or the other. They're commercial or they're residential. And
rarely
80%
rarely
of them
are they both.
Right.
Yeah.
And probably 80% of them are residential. Right?
Exactly.
So they're 99% residential, let's say.
Oh, they were contractors going out of business daily.
So I guess the question is, and I don't know the answer, but what happens in another downturn that we have, and you've got a residential contractor market, and what if residential goes down 35%, that business?
Right.
You're going to have a weeding out of contractors.
Yep.
I think
exactly.
It's obvious, right? For us, we're diversified against every market. That's a good thing, right?
Right.
But our business looks a lot different now than it did in 2008, right?
Here's the big difference. Number one, sales are double what they were. Okay. In every one of those key markets that I mentioned, every one of those four key markets, we're much stronger now than we ever have been. Okay. We're deeply entrenched. More people know who we are now than they did 14 years ago in 2008. I mean, thanks to your efforts in the social media end and our ability. And by the way, we now have two people that can, entertain, discuss, review, quote, and we found better ways to close deals.
Why don't we go right there?
Which is the Zoom call.
Right. Why don't we go right to, let's just assume this thing's going down 30%.
Right.
The global economy, the recession, unemployment goes from 3.5% to something much higher. People take their stock market gains and it affects their behavior.
Right.
They start hoarding money, not spending. They stop building their staycation backyard. Everybody just across the board pulls back. And businesses, the contagion starts happening where 10% of the workforces get laid off, 20% it starts spreading, right? Now we're Paverart. We're a small business, less than 10 employees. We're manufacturing. Why don't we go through the steps that we would do right now to prepare for it? And we're kind of doing it, but to be honest with you, things are pretty darn good right now. Quotes are up. Things look good. But this thing's coming. Yeah, it's going to come in 6 months from now, a year from now, or 6 weeks. Who the heck knows? But it's coming, right?
Let's preface this by saying we hope it doesn't.
Right.
Okay, and things will continue to.
But you might as well prepare for it.
You wish you had the magic project that was recession proof,
Right.
but ours, it's not recession proof. It really isn't. One of the key items that I think is different now than what it was before is that we can be aggressive both in the defensive posture and the offensive posture. Let's talk about the offensive posture. Our marketing budget now it's 10 times what it was back in 2008. More people are being reached by us because of technology, and thank the good Lord for that, than ever before. You get to a tipping point where you might have to say, okay, here's the amount of dollars that we have to spend on marketing. All right, we're starting to see a slight downturn in calls, eventual sales. We may have to pull back a little bit on marketing, but it makes you more keen in determining where that marketing is going to go. Where are you going to target that marketing for? And that's what I call the offensive posture. You're getting on the offense. Not offense meaning you're going to be spending even more money. Maybe that's part of that, but there's other ways that you can get more keenly aware of the impact that your marketing has. You know that better than anybody. You study this virtually 2-3 days a week, and that's, I think that's a key area. But that's one of the offensive measures that I think needs to be taken.
Well, I think, look, if I'm a small business, whether it's Paverart or any small business, forget about small or big.
Right.
Think of it in terms of customer journey. When they first realize there's a company, Paverart, that exists, and I might be interested in that. The idea, the awareness of a business, all the way through, I'm installing a design in my backyard or a school logo at a university. And then there's every step in between. I kind of think of it, we call it paper to Paverart, going from design all the way to installation. The customer journey, let's just think about that. Offense is not just marketing, it's how do you answer the phone? It's, I would think the number one thing that businesses should be doing, if I were to say, what was my advice? Take the customer journey all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom, and there's probably 75 steps. The more complicated the business, the more steps I would think.
Exactly.
Break down every one. This is probably worth a 2-day retreat exercise to go through it all. I can probably think of 5 things in our customer journey, from sending a design out the door, sending samples out, to actually shipping the product, that we've got to break down, and what we do now won't work in a downturn, or we'll be spending too much money in the downturn. So let's take one, shipping. When we ship a design, I don't know what our track is. It's probably pretty good. 90% of all shipments arrive, no problem. But the question is,
define no problem.
No problem being, all right, we've got a 4-foot compass.
Right.
We ship it out the door. You're a homeowner. You get your compass. You open it up. Everything's perfect. There's not one cracked piece. Cracks are the problem, right? It looks good. And then there's, out of 100, 90 of them might look good, or 95. Now, all our customers know If they get a compass and something's cracked, they just take a picture of us, get it to us. We'll cut it within 48 hours. We'll get it back out to you. There's no financial risk to a customer. The question is, the risk is really all Paverart. If you're in a world where you're getting 30% less sales or potential for that, can you continue to withstand 10% of all your shipments or 5% of them all with some type of damage that you got to recut, rebox, incur the cost? You probably got to figure out ways to fix that. That's one small example.
Well, you can fix it two ways, right? You can increase your price and just assume that
True.
you're going to have broken pieces as an ongoing issue or problem, or you can fix the problem
And start to reduce it.
Now,
What for us in that world, how big of a project is it to figure out how to get it from, let's just say, 10% error rate or problems on shipment to, let's say, 3%? You're never going to get to zero. But how much of a project, who's involved, what's the cost, are there any investments? How do you attack a problem like that, and who's got to be involved, and how hard is that? Presumably, if it was easy, we would have done it already.
Right. There's ways to, we've already mapped out, it's interesting you bring this up, but we've mapped out ways to improve shipments to the point where the chances of anything getting cracked or broken by the time it gets to the client, okay, it doesn't leave here that way, remember, but by the time it gets to the client, if something happens, it's generally because something happened in transit. Somebody was handling it with a fork truck too roughly. They dropped the pallet. It's bouncing around in a truck. Potholes, whatever. But there are ways to reduce or make it a more secure shipment. And
Can you and I do
that's
that?
That's what we need to start. We need to implement that tomorrow.
And you and I can't affect that on our own. We need people involved in that.
You have to
in our shop.
The team needs to. It needs to be a team ideal. It needs to be a team goal. It needs to be a team objective. And everybody benefits from that. I mean, everybody benefits. So what's the difference between 10% and 3%?
A lot of money.
It's 7%, and that 7% is a significant amount of dollars,
right?
Which can be used for reinvestment in the business. I mean, we're preaching to the choir here.
But I think the point is, if you and I just said, let's reduce our damages, if we just leave it at that and throw it over the wall to the shop, that's not going to happen.
No.
We've got to get them in a room. We got to whiteboard out all the problems. We got to have ideas. We got to get buy-in to the whole thing.
Yeah, and mandate that this is what we're going to do going forward, and then make sure that you follow up, make sure that that's being done, and we've got a good crew here. They'll do it.
Right.
But you want to follow up on it to make sure that you're having that financial impact that you're hoping that meeting was going to get you. So, but that's right off the bat. I think that's an offensive measure that you can take.
Right. Now, you mentioned making sure your follow-ups are on point and tight. This is an area we struggle with. We've got a lot of inbound calls coming in. And a good day, I've always said a good day is when you get 6 or 7 inquiries. Mm-hmm. You touch all those inquiries, whether it's through a phone call, an email. You respond to all the customers real time. 24 hours is a good standard. For us, that's good. But we got them their initial question answer. What's the price of this? Or do you have this and available in this color? Or whatever the question is. 24 hours, that's a good standard. I would argue that's probably not enough.
It's not, and I think you're absolutely right. One of the things I would say, though, let a more aggressive and proactive approach to follow-ups on already quoted projects, whether they be residential, commercial, institutional, or municipal. That's a great plan. And if you compare what we're doing currently to what we were doing, let's say 2 years ago, there's no comparison. We're doing easily 3 times the follow-ups now than we ever used to. We recognize that. We brought in contact management software that is making it easier for us to find the time to do that, because time is an issue, and this relates directly to being a small business. As a small business, you're wearing 3, 4, 5 different hats a day. One of those hats is answering the phone, customer service, the general term customer service, getting that customer all the right information that he needs to know. But so comparatively speaking, which is what you want to see in a small business, we've progressed, but we've not progressed enough. The amount of time it takes to do follow-ups is really a question of organizing your organizational database. Or spend more time. Well, we're working a lot of hours now, but it's the easiest part of the sales call is the follow-up, because it generally doesn't take very long. And if you map out 2 hours, 3 days a week, 6 hours a week, and assume that you're able to make 10 phone calls in an hour, anywhere from 7 to 10 phone calls in an hour, do the math. That's a lot of follow-up phone calls.
Sure.
And there's 2 of us.
Right.
So multiply that number times 2.
And our inbound interest in the business is up double what it used to be. And not
At least double.
because we're investing more in marketing.
It's at least double, and we're not in the busy season yet.
Right.
So we're not at the peak of the busy season between June and September.
And I haven't given this a lot of thought, but if your inquiries are up double, and what would you say? What is our success rate with a great follow-up? 10% of all of our inbound leads?
I would say between 10 and 15.
All right,
Yep.
so we've got 80% opportunity to improve on that.
Exactly.
It begs the question, if I'm spending, let's just say I'm spending 10% of sales on marketing, are we better off, number one, reducing that a little bit and getting your follow-up rate? In other words, we're spending all this money to bring leads in, and we're giving ourselves a 10 to 15% score on doing it perfectly, right? A lot of room for improvement. Do you start messing with that equation a little bit?
Make more follow-up calls.
That's the answer?
That's the bottom line.
Right.
But why? What's the, somebody will ask the question, well, what difference does it make? All you're really doing is finding out if a client made the decision to buy from you or not. No, it's much more than that. If you do it based on the way, and by the way, we'll give them a plug. We have the HubSpot contact management software.
Yep.
And if you go by your predetermined follow-up task date to get a follow-up on your quote, it's not going to be 2 weeks from now. It's going to be 3 days from now or 2 days from now, based on what you think would be the proper amount of time after that quote's been made and that call's been made, to follow up with the client. Because let's be honest, every call that we take, we're pretty good. We know what we know our business. We've got the template down, okay, regardless of which of the 5 areas of client that we deal with. But you can always miss something. You follow up with somebody and somebody says, well, look, I'd like to buy, but my problem is, you're telling me that you've got an 8-week lead time. Well, my contractor's there today. That person didn't bring that objection up when we were originally talking to them. But when, let's say it's a wife who's going to go back to her husband after the call and say, I can get this compass rose, but they can't get it for us for 8 weeks. And the husband goes, no way. The contractor's going to be out of here by then. I can address that objection, okay, which is exactly what that is. It's an objection. And as an objection, we can address that. We might be able to turn that negative response into a sale. That's what I'm talking about. And that's the 10, 15, maybe 20% of those follow-ups. There's a plethora of things. That's just one idea.
But I think the opportunity could be, as people start thinking about their business, how to prepare for a downturn, and mapping the customer journey. You and I are kind of guessing that of all of our inquiries, and let's just say we get 1,500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
You and I think we would give ourselves an A, and we've truly followed up on all those inquiries 15% of the time.
Right.
We're guessing at that number, right?
Yeah.
You can measure it, though. We bought HubSpot,
right,
and we should be able to go into all 1,500 and say, after we did the quote, how many of them, what percentage of all of them did we get a phone call? And if they don't want to buy it, no problem.
Right, exactly.
Do we know why? Was the price too high? Timing wasn't right? Well, it could be 30 different reasons.
Sure.
But we're not taking those reasons. If you're only hitting 15% of them. Another example.
Let me just interject one thing. Just think about if 10%, only 10%, what's 10% over a year's time based on 1,500 inquiries?
Extra 150 calls.
That's 100, but that's 150 that I'm saying. If you can turn that around 10% of the time, maybe that's being.
Well, that's 150 more touches with the customer to follow up. If you improved it 10%, And then of the 150, you're going to close a few of them that you wouldn't have normally done.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
will it be 10% of that number? 15? I don't know, but that could be $60,000 worth of business.
It's exactly
That's relevant
right.
for a small business.
And that's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
So,
Another one is I'm fascinated in a bad way. Google reviews, people or it could be any review. It could be Yelp. It could be Google. Do you have enough Google reviews and are they quality? Now I'm proud of the fact that all of our reviews are 5-star. What I'm not proud of, it's almost embarrassing. We've got 13 Google reviews.
right.
How can that be when we're selling thousands of designs over the course of 20 years?
Right.
We're just not asking consistently. It's not part of that customer journey.
That goes on the list.
It goes on a list. What if we had, look, we've got 13 and they're all 5-star. That's great. We think we do great work. What if that number was 50 5 stars? That becomes a little more impressive. Now, would that make you sell more? I don't know, but seems like that should be measured. If it's measurable, we should be doing it if it's relevant, right?
People are going to check Google reviews. We know this for a fact. It's been measured, and all you got to do is ask Google. They'll tell you.
Right. They will.
You're looking for 5-star reviews. But the idea here is that's the search engine doing some of the sales work for you, okay? Because you're not going to tell somebody, oh, we've got 52 5-star Google reviews. Yeah, that might come up, but I doubt it.
Right.
They're going to check
They
on
can do
that
it
on their own.
Right.
That's exactly right.
So you are what Google says you are. And you're a business with 13 4-star reviews is not as impressive as a business with 50 4.8 reviews, 4.8
Exactly.
star or something like that. So
Very good point.
Again, mapping the customer journey. What's important that can be measured? Are you measuring it? And then what's the goal to improve it on the key things? We've probably got 3 or 4 of those. So, but I think preparing for a downturn, you want to identify those things, especially when you're small, because you're not going to throw more people at
Right.
each of these things. We're going to do it within the resources we have.
We've basically come up with 2 things that we can do from going on the offensive to attack the potential.
The downturn.
And by the way, those 2 things were, I think they're excellent.
And we can
But-
start on Monday.
Exactly, we can start on Monday. But by the way, you can also do these things when the economy's booming.
absolutely right.
But you better be doing them when you're anticipating a downturn.
Now, let me
get
ask-
into that groove.
That's right. Let me ask you, just in our industry in general, the Facebook, a shout out to the Hardscape Contractors of America. I think Robert Phillips started that group. Fantastic group. I think there's 10,000 contractors all over the country on this thing. I've learned, we're not contractors.
Where's their greatest visual? Where do we find them?
Well, it's a private Facebook group,
Gotcha.
and it's made for.
So it's on Facebook.
It's on Facebook. It's a private group. You got to ask for permission to join, and you got to be relevant to the industry.
Right.
So we're a manufacturer.
And we're members, though.
Yeah,
right?
we're members, and we serve the industry, but we're not contractors. So we're kind of lurkers, and contractors are a client base of ours. I've learned a ton from these guys. Now, there's some, and gals, there's females on it too. One thing that's fascinated me, though, and that is we're in a booming economy right now, even though we're talking about preparing for the downturn. There's been this fascinating topic, and I think Ross Causey, he's been a great advocate of this. I've learned a ton from his commentary of charging for estimates. So basically, you're a homeowner, you're calling me, I'm a contractor, and it costs me money to go to your house, to go evaluate your house,
Sure.
give a consultation. My golly, I should get paid for that. I'm a professional. Shouldn't I? Well, and then there's a resistance, and there's an ongoing debate. Should you be doing that, or is it value added to your business? I'm curious, what do you think, number one, on the concept in general, charging to give somebody a price estimate on your business, and then number two, does that work in a downturn? Because right now there's more work than contractors to do it. So the odds are in everyone's favor. You can ask for whatever you want in boom time. When this thing hits the skids, and there's 30% less work, and there's more contractors than work available, that equation flips. Do you soften your stance on that? What are your thoughts on that whole topic of how do you weed out the tire kickers?
That's a great question, and here's where the problem lies. Just my opinion. Most contractors, you know what? That's not right. I shouldn't say most contractors. What I should say, there's going to be a large enough segment of contractors out there that when all of a sudden business gets tight, okay, the demand for your product goes down. All right, for whatever reason. Recession, whatever. There's going to be a a decent chunk of contractors who aren't going to charge for that service, okay? And it makes it tough on even the good contractors, the really good contractors, the top quality contractors. It makes it tough on them not to do the same thing. Now, if you've got 50 Google 5-star reviews, okay,
Right.
As a contractor, if that's something that you can reference, if you want to...
All the more reason to have great Google reviews
yeah,
and a quantity.
Absolutely. I'm of the opinion that you should get paid for your time. I've always been of that opinion, and if you're going to take a significant portion of your time, even in the evenings, a lot of these things get done during the evenings.
Sure.
Going to see the client, spending time with them, trying to figure out exactly what direction they want to go in terms of the design and the materials they want to use. And, well, can you get me 3 different options here? It's mind-boggling. It takes, we do our own here. We know how much time that takes.
Right.
So there's 2 ways that they can do it. They can either charge, or they can tell their client, look, I'm happy to give you an idea of what the pricing's going to be.
Ballpark it.
Yeah, I can ballpark that for you, but if you want me to act like a design build firm, if you want me to give you landscape architecture services on top of estimates for material and time, and it's, I think you really have to charge for that service. And even if it's a nominal fee, just cover your costs.
I think we have a similar dynamic in our business. Brian one day, our designer, our plant manager, came to me one day, and I never knew this folder existed. It's a folder, it's called Designs, or Unsold Designs.
Mm-hmm.
I opened it. I'm telling you, this thing was a mile long. This is like the graveyard of designs that never materialized into orders.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I don't know how much each one took. Let's just say each one was an hour for Brian to do, or an hour and a half.
Right.
I'm looking at a laundry list that might be 300 deep. That's a lot of time and resources spent. So we've gotten to a thing. If number one, we've got a website. We've got 500 designs on our website. We've got videos. We've got blog posts. You can spend 15 hours and not go through all the content on our website, right?
That's right.
So you would think that adds a little credibility that we know what we're doing. But some clients just absolutely have to see a mock-up of a design. And we've gotten to a model of charging $200 or $250 for that. And if they move forward with the order, we'll credit it back so they're not spending anything more.
And what have we found? I would say 95%, maybe 95% plus of those clients view that positively. That's fine. I have no problem.
Right.
They're,
What if they wouldn't? Are they serious to begin with?
One's got to question whether they're serious. And if we can give a quick quote to somebody who's kicking the tires. We get requests for, I need an idea of where we're going to be.
Right.
And let's say if we were to eventually settle on a $3,000 price as an exact price, something that you could hold us to. We'll give you a formal quote for $3,000, but it includes Brian doing a shop drawing takeoff and Dominic colorizing it, and these things take time. But if it included all of that, what's our design charge? $250.
That gets credited back.
It gets credited back. They've got nothing to lose. I think that's the reason why we don't get any pushback on that.
Well, I think as you think about in the context of a downturn, and we've got this graveyard of designs that never materialized, right? That's time, and time is money. So are you better off having your designer, in this case Brian, spend all this time on designs that never materialize, or trying to weed that down by either charging or getting a real serious qualified customers?
Great.
His time could be on R&D and figuring out how to cut porcelain, which could be a next new hot thing in the industry, which we're figuring out. So everything, I think one of the concepts, preparing for a downturn, money's an asset, right?
Right.
Time might be arguably more of an asset than your money, right? The cash that you have in the bank as a business.
That's what's supposed to lead to the money.
So if you've got people that are consumed in their time, their 40 hours a week or whatever they're working, and 10% of that time is spent on unproductive things, build a process to get that reallocated to something more. And that design thing for us with Brian is a key one. If you can manage that down or do the same number of designs, have them pay for it, and then convert it on the back end. then you're moving in the right direction. You're using your time better.
Interesting point. And if we take a step back and look at a lot of the cause for that question, the reason that question's being asked, I think, is because over the last 2 years, the demand for hardscape installation, contractors, the landscaping, softscaping, not just hardscaping, the demand has been off the charts. You don't have enough time to see all these people. So if your time is being taken up by people who demand design, we need designs, we want to see 3 different options, there's 5 other people out there that aren't going to demand that, and maybe you get 2 of those people to give you jobs. At some point, I can see why it makes sense to charge those people, for that work. You're basically, the demand for it goes up, and when the demand for it goes up and the supply is limited, there should be a price there to accommodate that.
I think the biggest watch out or the biggest danger possible, this word gratitude is pretty darn important. Right. If you get a customer, a client, it could be a homeowner, for us it could be municipalities, landscape architects. If you don't approach that with a sense of gratitude, number one, thank you for knocking on my door. Mm-hmm. The risk is, in this world of more demand than the contractors available to do it, or manufacturers, and, you got to pay me $250. You got to pay me, my design fee is $1,000. If it starts to feel like we as a manufacturer or we as a contractor are doing them a favor, and then we're going to extract money before we even give them a quote, there's a risk there, especially when this thing turns down. Being customer friendly and grateful for the opportunities is always a good strategy.
Oh my goodness,
I think that I've seen this thing kind of teeter on that line of, when you're trying to get the right client or make sure you weed out the tire kickers. That's kind of the risk. I don't think that happens a lot, but it is one of those watch outs. I'm always sensitive to hitting them with that's the hesitancy of design fees and things like that. Is you don't want to appear ungrateful for the opportunity to work with somebody. So.
And we pick our shots on this.
I think we're pretty good at it, but it is one of those things.
And I think a contractor can do that. Pick their shots.
Right.
You do this a long enough period of time, you have a pretty good feel for those people that are going to go for it and those who aren't going to go for it. But if I were to lean in one direction or the other, and I think you and I would both agree on this, lean towards the design fee.
Yeah, I think really you're right. The last thing I would say in terms of preparing for I don't know if it's a piece of advice. Cash is absolutely king. If you run, every business is different. Every business has different cash requirements. Mm-hmm. Whatever your goal is, to have 2 weeks worth of payroll in the bank, 3 weeks worth of payroll, 4 weeks, whatever your historical balance is, you should plan on doubling it going into a recession. Unless you plan on taking a hatchet knife to your expenses, which usually means people. I'd rather build up my cash balance and weather the storm. So whatever your historical balance is and what that represents relative to your expenses, at least double it going into this thing. So you're not going to get there overnight, but squirrel away money and have the ability to weather it out. Be the last man standing, because there will be 30% of the people that go out of business.
Great advice. There's so basically we've outlined at least 4 things that you could do from an offensive standpoint to get prepared for and work your way through an economic downturn like that.
I'd love to have some contractors on and get their opinions as we start to touch different people to see what they're thinking about going into a downturn.
We know a few, too.
We know a few.